Good morning. It's just after 9:30, Friday, July 25th. This is the Education and Culture Committee. I'm the chair, Will Jawando, and I'm joined virtually by my colleagues, Gabe Albernaz and Kristen Mink. Councilmember Albernaz will be here in person during the meeting at some point, and also here with our MCPS colleagues, Kimberly Fields and Peter Moran. Thank you for joining us, and Doug Prouty from our central staff. We have two topics today that are, this will be our last work session until the fall. So two important topics. Our last work session until school starts, actually. One is around the MCPS Strategic Technology Plan update and talking about how we're using technology across the district, and an update on that plan and anything coming on in the future, and then the newly formed Division of Technology Services to hear how that is taking shape. And then something that folks have been talking about a lot, the MCPS cell phone policy update based on the data that's been received over the last year or so, and the cell phone regulation for the upcoming school year after the results of the pilot. So we've obviously been hearing a lot from parents and students around this policy in particular, and looking forward to seeing what we've learned and where we're going. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Prouty to tee us up.
Thank you very much, Council Vice President Jawando. Doug Prouty, Senior Legislative Analyst. So in the packet for the technology plan update, some background in terms of the technology plan that was promulgated in 2014 to 2016, some information about how that was then adjusted and prioritized in terms of moving forward for the future at that point. Fiscal years, the table on page 2, table number 1, shows some changes in terms of funding for technology infrastructure. FY17, $3 million allocated towards enhancements in terms of additional grade levels and content areas that have access to Chromebook technology, as Chromebooks were expanding throughout the system at that point. Then in FY23, $800,000 added for a number of different purposes in terms of providing more Chromebooks, providing hotspots for students who did not have internet access at that point, which was a major topic during the pandemic. And then for the current fiscal year, an allocation of $3,160,218 for Chromebook repair, and also in terms of setting up the new Division of Technology Services. That's going to be discussed in detail by our friends from MCPS today. You'll note on pages 2 and 3 some details in terms of how the Division of Technology Services will be structured, and some charts there for you in terms of who's going to be reporting to and responsible for what activities. And that will get us ready for the slide deck.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to MCPS.
All right. Good morning, Vice President Jawando and council members. My name is Kimberly Fields, the Chief Technology Officer, and we'll be speaking with you about the Division of Technology Services as well as the status of the Away All Day project. I am joined by my colleague.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Peter Moran, Chief of Schools. Great to be here with you, Mr. Jawando.
Okay, the Division of Technology Services team provides high-quality technology systems and services essential to teaching and learning. The division is continuing to be committed to excellence in providing technology solutions to support teachers, engage students, and assist in the effective business operations of MCPS, Montgomery County Public Schools. The Technology Division will also continue to meet the evolving needs of the students, educators, and administrators of our district, and it's important that our technology, we are providing is scalable, maintainable, sustainable with our technology architecture. So wanted to be able to provide some stats as it relates to what has transpired within the Division of Technology Services and our support of our other various areas within our past fiscal year 2025. If you notice, Synergy Parent View active usage, we are at a 91% active usage, and that is including at least one parent or guardian that is actively using our Synergy system, which is Student Information Systems.
How is that defined? actively using?
Actively using, we actually
Logging in,
tracking, taking a look at the grades, the report cards, attendance, that. So when they're actually going into the system.
So are you able to, you don't have a ton of slides, so I'm just going to pause you,
Nope,
stop you
that's
as
fine.
you're going, if that's okay.
Okay.
Are you able to tell what they've done? Like, is it like, as opposed to like just logging in, is this 91% everything from just like I logged in, I figured out how to log in, or is it clicking through or looking at things? Like how deep are you able to go on the analytics here?
I will get back to you on the
Okay.
depth of the analytics.
Okay. And what that number represents. The reason I ask, which I probably should have said first, is because as a parent of 4 MCPS students, I've been on Synergy a lot, and there's a lot of this way, that way, certain things you can see here, you got to go back there. If you got to log in here, the app does this. To me, it could be more intuitive. And I'm not just using my experience. I've heard this from parents, and I'd be curious. I think it would be worth. You got this new division. You know, if we're
Absolutely.
touting a number like this, which is a great number, you know, obviously 100% would be better, but 91% is very good of people using it, given all the information's on there. I'd want to know a little more of what active usage is, how they're defining that, what you're able to know, just because. In addition, continuous improvement. Like, how do we make this more intuitive, more user friendly? Where are people having hangups? You know, all those kind of questions. And I'd be very curious. I think it would be something that would be helpful to you and helpful for the public to as they move forward. Hopefully that makes sense.
That does.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. The next item I wanted to also talk about was our technology help desk support.
It's a good segue.
We typically receive monthly, this is on average anywhere from 2,000 to 2,700 inquiries as it relates to email, self-service, calls, walk-ins, or using the virtual agent. And we typically can resolve things within 3 to 9 minutes. So wanted to make sure that was aware. So we are actively assisting not just our parents, but community and students, whoever call that line.
Also would be curious to know, I would assume, because I've called the support desk for this, most of it's like, how do I log in? But I'd be also curious to know what are the other,
And we do have those data analytics as well.
what else are
so
people
we can
needing
share
help
those
with,
out.
you know?
It could be anything from, for instance, we needed help, like you said, logging into HCM, or we can't, our MFA multi-factor authentication, or I'm having trouble using my laptop. Can you further assist me with this particular item, or finding something? So the more complex items, we do make sure that they are routed to the correct department to further assist if it's outside of our level 1 or level 2.
You say walk in. There's a place you can walk in?
There are people that do come on site and ask for
Okay.
assistance where they need to have that interaction.
All right.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Our next item relates to Google assignments, and this is a pretty substantially large number. For 6 months, we had about 15 million launches. And what does that mean? That means students actually in using the Google platform, whether it's the workspace, it's Google Docs, it's assignments that the teachers assign. We primarily are seeing the high usage at the high school level. So definitely wanted to, and it could be their slides, anything on that level. So wanted to be able to share that.
Yeah.
Also, School Cash Online, our payment system, which we work with the Division of Finance to support the payment process of students and parents. We currently have a 79.2% usage of that particular platform.
So on this, I brought this up before, and it's great that we have this option. I use it all the time. There's obviously a fee associated with it, and which is understandable because that's how School Cash makes their money. I think as we're heading into the new school year, I have heard from some parents that they were unaware that they could write a check or pay the school with, at the beginning of the year, for example, like in just
those payment methods did not go away.
No, right? I know, but I just think I think people are less aware of those, and so in the communication as we're going forward, because obviously, for example, if you have 2 or 3 students, it charges you a fee for each student, so you can't aggregate, like you can't fill all of their accounts. You have to pay the fee. It's like $3 each student, and as opposed to like if you wanted to at the beginning of the year, you could just give $150 and each kid would have $50 and you wouldn't have paid any fee. And I don't know, are the schools able to take cash for this, or is it just checks? Do you know the answer to that? I know that's not your department, but maybe Peter Moran knows.
They are.
Okay, so you could come to the front desk and say, I want to give, this is for my student's lunch account.
Yeah, and the cafeteria manager then can load it up on the
Load it up.
Yeah.
And then how would the parent view that amount absent the school cash online system? How would they know how much is in the account? I know the students would know when they go get their food.
It would be incorporated and accessible on that.
Correct.
So if you put it would transfer over and
to
show.
school cash.
Yeah.
It would show there. Okay, so they could still view it even if they weren't using it to update. Okay.
And we see a lot. I mean, there are a lot of parents that come in and provide cash.
Yeah, right.
So it's a good question.
Good. Yeah. Thank you.
But we will provide some clarifying information that goes out at the beginning of the school year.
It's a good resource. You need it. I mean, people are on the go. You forget. You need to be able to do it. But yeah. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. And the other item, just professional development courses that are offered that we use throughout the year that are offered to our employees. So example of some of the courses, we have compliance training, artificial intelligence, also known as AI for teaching and learning support, our integration of primary robotics in pre-K through grades 2 classrooms. So just wanted to be able to provide some stats of how technology is involved and engaged, not just within central office, but as well within helping our teachers best be able to help our students and families and communities as well.
So 4,214 courses offered to
That are active with
to educators
Yes.
on these topics.
Yes. These are just some of the topics.
Examples
of topics.
These are online modules?
Yes.
Okay.
Within our platform.
I'd be very curious to come back to at some point. We don't have to do it today, but the AI usage and how we're just AI in general, about how it's being used in the classroom, how teachers are being taught. Like, I'd be very curious to see more about this AI for teaching and learning support, like what that course entails. This came up. I was at MCC PTA, just did a big regional thing in Wooten. There was a whole discussion about usage of AI and how we're going to approach it. And obviously this is a global discussion about this, particularly in education, but I think it'd be good to come back to that, Doug, at some point and get some more information about how we're approaching it.
Absolutely. And we are offering this past summer currently that we're in artificial intelligence courses for our educators. And they have enrolled in the webinars as well as the asynchronous and synchronous courses in preparation for the coming school year.
Who's providing that? Do you know who's providing that training?
The training is coming from the Department of Educational Technology in conjunction with working with our teaching and learning department as well.
The U.S. Department of
No.
Your internal.
Our internal Department of
It's
Education.
an in-house created module.
Yes.
Okay. I'd be curious to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah, thanks. Okay, great.
Okay, so the Division of Technology has had recent changes. Originally, Division of Technology Services resided under Strategic Initiatives. We now have our Chief Technology Officer, and we've made changes to 2 of our departments and our names, which I will go through.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Our first department did remain the same. This is our Business Information Services Department.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think before we do that, Councilmember Mink, did you have a question?
Oh, let me go back.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Thanks. I was wondering if you're able to see, who's accessing the professional development courses. If you're able to see, for example, if there's patterns from like where there's a school where there's lots of teachers who are accessing and others where there aren't. So you can find out how maybe admin might be promoting the availability or encouraging that.
We will take a look at our analytics. Get back to you. Thank you, Councilmember.
As you can see, we like to know who, what, when, where.
Yes.
Just and I know you'd like to know that too.
Absolutely.
All right, let's continue.
Okay. In reference to one of our departments, Business Information Services Department supports what we call our Hub Plus, which consists of our finance, budget, procurement, and human capital management. They also support Schoolcast Online, various content management platforms, as well as different safety and security projects, just to name a few. Also, we provide support in IT organizational change management. Our next area is the cybersecurity and technology infrastructure, which was initially the Department of Infrastructure and Operations. Within this particular department, this consists of our data center, our database administration, our various help desks as it relates to technology support, our enterprise system administration, our school technology support, which is our IT specialist, as well as our telecommunications and cybersecurity. And we recently just hired our new director for cybersecurity and technology infrastructure. Then we definitely are looking forward to the different things that we will be evolving with as it relates to technology. Our next area is the Department of Educational Technology, which was formerly known as Instructional Technology. And this group consists of our technology implementation specialists, which provide technology training on new and current applications. Working closely with our schools, teaching and learning teams, and professional district-wide growth department, we also have our systems engineering and integrations team, which is our reviewing, testing, and deploying of school software technology. This also is our tech mob, which is also known as our technology innovation and modernization and management, which also reviews our hardware technology, such as our Promethean boards, our student laptops, our teacher laptops, assisting in various different tech replacements, as well as upgrades throughout the district. Our last department is our student and data systems, which manages our student systems and development operations, as well as information architecture and data systems, while supporting key functions as enrollment, scheduling, grading, reporting, and data analysis to drive informed decisions and student success. They also are the ones, for example, that have created the school profile dashboards that are also created by this team.
Not sure where the appropriate place to ask this question, so I'll ask it here. I think I have the right two people here to at least give me put me in the right direction. There's been discussion. Another thing that came up at this MCCPTA is that students don't use these anymore. Like they don't write. AI is connected to this about as far as how they're accessing information, but also we're learning more about how learning is impacted by screen-only learning, in the sense that if everything is submitted online, if there's no written, I hate game. Some schools, for example, have gone to blue books in college, like where they're having to, for the AI issues, but also for tests and stuff, but for other reasons, requiring students to write more and turn in things that way. What, if any, when you look at education technology, obviously huge advances. There's things that help students with disabilities. There's a lot of good reasons that we've gone in the way that we've gone with technology to from when, in a very short period of time, from like having written assignments to almost having no written assignments as far as actual pen and paper or pencil and paper. Are we looking into that at all? Is there any discussion about how this might be impacting our students, and are there any pilots? Hopefully you understand the question of how we're approaching that, if we are. And I know this is, again, not something unique to us, but there are some schools that are doing some things a little differently to try to address both the AI issue, but also just how kids are learning in the writing issue as well. Don't all go at once here.
So first off, I just, in terms of like going back and looking at after the purchase of Chromebooks and how we put a Chromebook in every student's hand, and what the intentions were behind that, and then transitioning back to in-person learning, and then what the impact of doing that is that I think in many cases the utilization of Chromebooks became an educational resource, but also a behavior management resource. And I think a lot of the parents' feedback that I've received directly is that often students are put on their Chromebooks or computers or devices as a means to control the classroom and pull a small group and be able to focus on them, knowing that they'll be busy with what they're doing on their Chromebooks. We've had recent conversations around the CKLA implementation and getting back to, at minimum, the drafting component of writing.
What is CKLA, just for people that are watching?
So that's our new curriculum that we are implementing in our elementary schools. It focuses a lot on building background knowledge of our students, so there's a significant crossover of social studies and science content into that. A lot of opportunities, of course, for writing, and the idea of drafting with paper, and then converting over to, similar to, I think, how a lot of us were raised. A lot of times we did the drafting with pen and paper, and then we converted it over to writing it onto a device. Right. So I think there's a transition we're seeing within that.
That's built into the curriculum.
That's built into the curriculum. I think that there are also schools that have recognized that it's a disruption to teaching time a lot with utilizing the Chromebook as an instructional tool.
Yeah.
There's been a transition also to a greater whole group instruction in the curriculum, which results in students not being independently working as much.
Right.
And you could argue there's good things and there's also some maybe not so good things about a lengthy whole group instruction. But it does take away or limit the amount of time that a student is independently on a device. So I think there's more time being built in also to being with a teacher on a device and being guided through instruction, as opposed to the independent work. I think that we could argue there's some age appropriateness around when a student is prepared to be independent on a device, and when they need to be. It could be a teaching tool, and they could be on their device with a teacher, paraeducator with them to guide them through whether it's writing. But it is something that we are talking about. It is a concern. I just met with a group of parents from an elementary school where that was the main topic and this was this week, right, that they wanted to discuss, was that they felt like their kids were on Chromebooks too much, and what were our parameters in terms of a lesson of like what's the right amount of time for a student to have access to a device. And so I think we're going through the process of trying to rewrite some of the things that we were well intentioned of doing years ago, and now have kind of built this reliance for both teachers and students that I have this outlet so I can focus on Peter and Kim and give them my undivided attention, and use that as a management piece so that I can give that differentiated instruction. And so I think there's a balance that we need to get back to.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I know it's not easy because the pendulum kind of really swung in the COVID even further, but I'm glad to hear that there's some things built in there. And obviously you can have student groups and where they're not utilizing devices as well, where they're engaging with each other, talking or writing or presenting as a group. And so I'm glad to hear that. And I would just encourage, as a part of the provision of technology services, I'm assuming they're integrated in that discussion, or will be, this new division of how we're managing that time on screen, and what the tools, how the tools are being used in light of this larger conversation.
Yeah. Kim and I've talked quite a bit about Chromebooks lately, probably,
A lot.
a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And good to see you, Councilman Roberts. All right, well, let's continue.
So definitely wanted to inform the council that we are continuing to work through various areas of concerns, especially that was one that was a big concern related to the Office of Inspector General Chromebook Inventory Management Report that came out in May. I will say we'll be able to provide further updates as we progress on resolving the areas that were presented, but wanted to be able to acknowledge that we are working through the issues that were identified, to be able to fix what needs to be fixed as we go through this current fiscal school year.
Do you have a sense of timeline of when you'll have more to say about what you're doing there?
I would say early fall.
Okay.
Yes.
So
we have our first touch base with the Office of Inspector General the end of August, and then we also have our milestones that we are to complete. First one is September.
Great. So we'll come.
Yes.
Once you've done that, we'll come back and
Yes.
incorporate that update in.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Also, in conjunction with Chromebook Management Report, we are also reviewing costs as it relates to the device breakage and the refreshing of aging devices. Replacements parts definitely have increased, because I know that was one of the concerns, was the increase, which has impacted the budget. We know there was an increase of the $800,000 due to a growing age of the devices, the wear and tear of parts, and a steady breakage rate. One of the things we are going to be doing is better tracking breakage and devices and refreshing and replacement of them. We do know damage to devices does continue to increase, which has required us to purchase additional parts. We are having internal discussions to trying to understand ways that we can reduce the student damage, and then also working with the schools and how can we properly maintain certain aspects of the care of a particular device. Mm-hmm. So wanted to make sure we address that. Before I go on to the next part, are there any questions?
Not for me on this one.
Okay, thank you. All right, the strategic plan development. This is a development, and I wanted to make sure to acknowledge the development as well as areas of opportunities. So in reference to our next areas and reviewing the requests, I found that a comprehensive strategic plan hadn't been developed or in place for several years. This is not how I approach my work, and I know this certainly doesn't reflect the standards of Superintendent Taylor or what our community expects. So given the size and complexity of our district, this is something that does need to change. An organization of this scale must have clear, forward-thinking technology plan to set priorities, guide investments, and support our accountability. We are now moving ahead to create a new plan that will ensure our technology decisions are transparent, strategic, and align with our mission to serve students and family. So as we go through that process, I will be glad to share more updates as we move forward. As presented, this is an opportunity to address areas such as the budget, communication platforms that are in use and better aligning with the needs of the community and the district and what we are hearing. Also, in reference to our Synergy platform, when there was the mention about you're going and doing this, and there's a lot of different avenues. How do we make certain technology more intuitive based on the example of Synergy? And so also seeing how we can also better inform too, through communication, the emails, announcements that are posted, and then other avenues as well, and getting feedback from our community. We also are working with MCCPTA Technology Committee. We meet with them to also obtain feedback further from the community, and also if students have different concerns as well. Employee retention will be used, is going to be critical, especially as our technology evolves to be able to serve our students. We want to continue to also offer our summer internships, such as our RISE internship program. We actually had 6 participants this year in Summer Rise. I actually had opportunity to engage with those 6. I held 2 work sessions with them on resume writing, interviewing, and leadership building, which was awesome. And we also took on for the first time 3 college interns as well within the Division of Technology. We want to make sure that we are continuing to use technology and it's available to students and it's equitable across the board. And aligning with our policies and regulations. So I would definitely say there's more to come. And then in reference to artificial intelligence, right? That is the hot topic. Making sure we actually have the fundamentals in place, right? Making sure we have the internal controls, the structure, rather than just saying, we're going to do this. Understanding what those risks are, understanding the impacts as well, and what type of security governance strategies do we need to have in place? Are we adhering to certain security frameworks that are being used out in industry and standard as well? So definitely want to make sure we're taking all those into consideration, in addition to making sure as technology evolves, that our regulations and policy are also aligning with it as well. So right now, just in reference to AI, we are currently updating one of our policies and we will have a regulation for the artificial intelligence that we are working on that will be further shared out later this fall.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So, just so I'm clear, you're updating the strategic plan, technology plan.
We will have a new one because
It's like
it was from
2014,
2014, 2017.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So what's the timeline for that update?
We are starting on that progress as we speak. We would be able to provide further update in the fall.
Okay.
As to where we are
An update
timeline
on
to
the
be able to
update.
provide
Okay, so
that.
you're not sure when it's gonna be.
Oh, the final product is what you're asking
Yeah.
for. I will be able to provide that timeline later on.
Okay, so just
As of right now,
you're figuring it out.
Yes,
you're
we
not
are
sure how
figuring
long
it
it's
out.
going to take, but you'll know in the fall the timeline for the
For
strategic
this
plan.
current school year, yes.
Okay, all right. So you're, yeah. Please let us know that. I mean, I think obviously super important.
Yes.
As it relates to AI, like Microsoft recently pledged $4 billion for AI education. Like this, there was a conservative number that, we've had like a 25, 26% increase in high school students using ChatGPT and other large language models for schoolwork. Like it's happened. I think that's very conservative, frankly. So that's why I asked earlier about like, I think parents, this committee, in our oversight capacity are going to want to know what are we teaching our teachers about how to deal with this. The educators are going to want to know. And so you said there's a module that was created in-house. I'm very curious to hear like where did you pull resources from? And I think it's very important to be open about that because that's the guidance you're giving teachers, at least right now, in the absence of anything else, about how to deal with AI in the classroom. And I think we need to be very clear, not that we have to have all the answers because no one does on this right now, but we just need to be very clear about what we are saying to educators about how to interact and how to deal with it. And then be very clear about what our timeline is for putting a policy in place, which you just said. I want to make sure I heard you're going to have a recommendation of a policy around AI usage in the fall. Is that what I heard?
There'll be a draft.
A draft.
Yes.
That would go to the board for discussion, and
Yes.
then you would finalize something. So it's sometime this school year, next
Yes.
coming school year.
Yes.
Okay.
We
but-
presented in May at the Policy Management Committee pertaining to emerging technologies as well as AI.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say like, and regulations are critical, and there's a timeline with that, but there's also reality.
Yeah,
And
right.
reality is that school starts in less than a month basically, and we're going to have to be tackling this. At our all administrators meeting on August 14th, we're having an in-depth conversation about how to utilize AI as a learning tool and providing some specific examples, but then also how it can be the opposite. And I think that's a part of the conversation even when we get to cell phones today. Like there are positive things about AI, there are negative things about AI. So we're going to get into that conversation and ensure that people are well prepared to, without even without that regulation in place, still to be able to put guidelines in place in their school and start to have discussions with teachers and paraeducators and parents and students around how we're using this and how we're not going to use it.
Yeah. And I would even go so far as, since you created it, it's open source in the sense that, like, I would share the module. Like, I'd say, parents, this is what we're telling teachers about how to engage with AI. You know what I mean? I just think it's the more transparent we can be around it. Obviously, the board's decision, your decision, but it's a suggestion. And as a parent, I would want to, I think, because this is so top of mind for everybody. And when you layer on the grading changes that we just talked about, so we know, which is, I think, overall a good thing, but we're going to see grades, which increases pressure to like do well, and so these things are connected. So, Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you. Great discussion, impressive presentation. Obviously, we've made a lot of headway, but as is always the case when we establish significant policy from the central office, how it's implemented school by school, because some of this is subjective, and obviously, we've talked about for a number of different sessions now the impact this is having within the classroom and within teachers. There's a wide range in comfort level and different perspectives. I've talked to teachers who would love to do away with all of it and go back to pencil and paper. And I've talked to other teachers who, on the other side, want to completely embrace it and just manage this in a way that's effective. So 2 questions. One, and you alluded to some of this, but and this is a complicated issue that is impacting school districts across the country and frankly around the world right now. So, but I do think that it's important enough that we have to really invest time and energy, not just in, and I know we're not just sending out these wonderful strategic plans and seeking input and then expecting people to implement them, but creating time and space for people to process and absorb this, and then formally, how realistic is that given that the school year is starting in less than a month? All of the challenges that you all are facing right now, we haven't even talked about what's happening at the federal level. So, but is there a plan to create a time and space for teachers, not just on their own time to be able to participate in these modules, but carving out definitive space and time for them to be able to do it?
So I think so. What we're seeing is that, and it kind of always either works its way up or works its way down. From speaking with elementary school principals, elementary school teachers, we have not seen like a high level of AI entering the elementary school space, which we know it will. Yeah. It's coming, right? At the secondary level, it's already there.
Oh yeah.
So we do have the structures for teachers to engage in conversations about how they're managing AI. I mean, I've spoken with high school teachers that look at the submission of student writing, and if they know that Peter's writing looked like this a month ago, it's very unusual for it to entirely change and doesn't really look like his writing at all. And what are we going to do about that, right? And so this is where I think these conversations with principals are so important at the prior 2 weeks before the start of the school year, to not have something written out about that specific scenario is a challenge for our teachers, for our principals, because there's just a very much a gray area there. And so the main AI source that they're dealing with is ChatGPT, right? So
right.
I think we have to provide schools with some specific guidelines outside of a regulation prior to the start of the school year, because it's just going to gain momentum. And in many places, it's already there. Teachers do remind students that it's not permitted, but you also have the difficulty of determining, like, and not getting into a conversation with a student where it actually it is their writing, and you're then saying and that you're kind of demonstrating low expectations in a lot of ways. Hey, this is really, really good. Kim, did you write this? Like, so as I'm even talking about this with you, it's raising it's raising anxiety about just how we're tight on this, how we communicate about it, what parents know at home. So there's a lot of work to be done around this. It's evolving, and we're going to have to give some specific guidelines to our principals outside of a regulation.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then again, finding that time and space for teachers to have the ability to be able to log in and do these modules, but then have these kinds of conversations at the school level, I think is going to be important. And then Chair Jawando alluded to this, and you just mentioned it, but the parent engagement, I mean, as a parent, I'm trying to catch up, and so it is constantly evolving. And I think it's going to be a challenge moving forward, but I appreciate the conversation.
And Mr. Albert I would just say also, that's why I think we really need to have a discussion after this about what Mr. Jawando's recommendation of getting the modules in front of parents. Yeah. Because, sadly, I'm just going to be honest with you, like, those YouTube things come up around, you need to level up on your AI understanding. And I think to myself, maybe I should take that. Right. So I think that, I think it's a resource we have to give our parents, so they can even just see the conversations that teachers are having, the learning that teachers are having. I think that's a great recommendation.
Yeah, and going back to, I mentioned the Blue Book conversation of this is where on the assessment side, there needs to be a mix of formative and, I think in my view, written assessment, like pen to paper in classroom time, where you're not using a device, and to your point of like comparing up again, not got you, but just to have a fulsome picture of how you are doing, right? Because there's a way to use, if you have a written book report assignment, for example, there's a way to use AI properly to help you with that. Like, we're not saying now you don't want it to write for you. That's not allowed. But as far as the research process or recommending secondary sources or primary, there's a way to use it correctly. And I think just as much of the it's not enough to just say don't do this. It's to say how to use a tool that is powerful in a positive way, and then on the other side, assess what they know in their brain in written or form as well. So I think I'm happy to hear that at least in the elementary curriculum we're starting to do that. But I would encourage us to be thinking as we are dealing with this how to do that. But yeah, I appreciate that. Council Member Mink.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you just made. I think it's not realistic, and it's also not practical to just say you can't use it. They're going to use it, and so it's figuring out how to teach them to use it in a way that still encourages learning, and in a way that is going to serve them as they move into their careers, into adulthood. All of those things. The reality is that it's here, and that there are positive ways to use it. There's AI detection tools that we should be vetting so that teachers don't feel like they have to go off of a subjective. We definitely don't want teachers to be in the position of making subjective judgments about whether somebody's writing is too good to have been produced by them. But we don't have to do that. There are detection tools that you can just run students' writing through. Is that something that we're planning on using or teaching our teachers about?
So I would say there's a number of tools we're currently evaluating, and I would say more to come on that as we're exploring, because we also are going to be looking at the data privacy that goes with it, as well as the security in addition to. But definitely agree. I did hear from when I was with the MCC PTA Technology Committee, how do we make sure that our educators are informed that the student might have just used it for grammar, but didn't actually write their paper, and to avoid certain accusations such as that.
And I was just gonna add, Councilmember Mick, to your point that not viewing it as a negative and viewing it as also an opportunity. We are, and this will be part of our conversation at with our principals here on August 14th. We are exploring instructional resources that are AI driven to provide greater access to some schools as kind of a pilot to look at how we're going to do that. In terms of the detection system, great recommendation. It is something that can be done. I just think we need to be very clear with teachers about the process of doing that, and also being respectful of their time. And I don't know what the detection process, what that looks like, but also just making sure that we're not taking away from the teacher's time during the instructional day to having to be running things through programs. Like, what is our process for doing that? Can it be connected to Google? If something's submitted through Google, could it just go right through that, so that it's not a teacher, driven practice that they have to engage in anytime something's submitted in writing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a time saver. I think if we find the right tool, a copy paste and hit the button and get a percentage likelihood that it was written by ChatGPT is a lot easier than a teacher kind of mulling over a comparison between last month's and this month's essay, and how much that was driven by their teaching, how much by AI. And then the other comment I wanted to make is that I think that there's definitely curricular pieces, and I think that this is part of what you're talking about also, that go along with this, that teachers are going to need lessons, grade appropriate lessons. I've heard about high school and college teachers and professors who are having students use ChatGPT specifically for certain assignments, so that they can see, and then editing them for looking for errors, etc. So we need to basically convince students not to use these tools and show them the flaws of it and show them what the alternatives are. And that's going to mean new lesson plans that are age appropriate. Is that part of this also?
So I know when we have been in discussions as it relates to the technology, using it as that tool, right? Using it ethically, being responsible from an ethics standpoint. You should use it for this, but you should not use it for this. It is the tool, but it should not be the tool that dictates everything to replace certain aspects of the writing and of the curriculum and teaching and learning. And this is where we're going to be collaborating with the various groups as well as parents, and from what Peter had just mentioned just now. So no, that ethical component is definitely tied to all of this.
Okay, sounds good. And in addition to ethical, it's just teaching students that, if you just use ChatGPT, you're gonna get some wrong information. You're gonna get biased responses. There are ways in which a lot of students believe, a lot of adults believe that they're gonna get a better product by using AI, and in a lot of ways that's just not true. And so it's that kind of fact-finding mission that they need to go on also to learn what are the ways in which they can use AI to improve their work output, and the ways in which that's not the outcome. And I want to make sure that we don't get too much into we're just trying to convince them that this is the right thing to do and this is the wrong thing to do, and then we're going to be punitive when we catch them, because I think that that's just not going to be as realistic or as effective, and we're going to end up in in a cycle that's not ideal. Does that resonate?
It does. It absolutely does. Because we also want to make sure that educators as well as students also know, just because it gives you that information, now you need to now go and take another look to make sure what was provided to you is accurate, right? Because they're not 100% accurate. And making sure that is being built in, being able to write the prompts accordingly, but also doing the additional legwork that goes with it.
Thank you. And last question is, how are we using experts in the field so that we're not reinventing the wheel to help us with this? And also, how are we incorporating student input? Because they know probably better than any of us what are the most current tools that kids are using, and what would be helpful for convincing, encouraging, incentivizing them to not use those tools in ways that are unhelpful. So how are we kind of incorporating them in an iterative way throughout this process as well?
So I'll start with your first question, where you had asked, how are we educating ourselves, especially from a technology standpoint? We are attending the different international technology conferences. We are partnering with various consortium education groups like COSIN, ISTE, things such as that, to be educated and informed, because again, MCPS is not the only school system that is learning, evolving, and trying to address the challenges and concerns that are being brought up. In addition to, we also are making sure, based on what we are learning, what we are reviewing, how to also obtain that feedback from the students as well, because they're going to be using it, educators are going to be teaching it, but we want to make sure there's a playing field that is level to the best of our ability. And then also working with the curriculum side of the house to also further engage them to provide additional feedback as well.
So I want to just press you on that one a little bit.
That's fine.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And that's great about the conference. That's all. That sounds great. On the student side, it would be great if there is a way for, as you are pulling ideas together, looking at possible lesson plans to give to teachers, that you have some kind of feedback structure, a group of students who you can consult with, et cetera, where you can present this to them. Here's what we're thinking. Here, what do you think about that? What are we missing? What are the types of AI that you're using that we might not have incorporated yet? And be able to modify what you're doing as you're doing it, so that you come out with a product that has been informed by students as well as expert and teacher voices.
No, and thank you for that. And we definitely will work together to be able to provide those different sessions for the students to be able to obtain that feedback and then take that and implement it in the solutions or strategies that we're going to be deploying.
Yeah, just to chime in on that, I think that's a really good idea if you're not doing it, almost like a standing student committee on technology or something like I feel like you could rotate students in, and I just feel like it's something that could be useful to you. Is something like that exist at this point?
So we should have an ongoing advisory committee. What we do is we do it around a specific area, cell phone regulation, bring students in, they give feedback, but it should be an ongoing discussion.
I think so. You have some institutional memory.
Correct.
Some people that are transition. Yeah, I think because this is only going to get more complicated.
Right.
So yeah.
No, and we'll definitely talk offline to be able to see what we can do to implement something such as that. So it's ongoing.
Awesome. All right. Please continue.
All right.
All right. So this brings it to our conversation around the away all day.
Good. So we're on cell phones now.
Yeah, we're on cell phones, right? But hopefully we're off of our cell phones while we're talking, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm going to put mine in my pocket. I'm going to model good activity here.
So we went through a pilot, as you know. We studied 8 middle schools, 2 high schools, engaged in conversations with those, of course, with those principals, their leaders in their building. We also conducted safety and security walks of now all of our high schools and middle schools. One of the key things we looked at during those with Chief Jones and others during those walks was actually the cell phone practices that were in place. So we saw practices that were outstanding, and we saw places that there needs to be significant work around structure and processes in those schools. On this slide, you have a picture right here. Just going to give an example of a strategy that has worked very well at Winston Churchill High School. Students enter the building, enter a classroom. One of these is hanging in each classroom. They have a number. They put their cell phone in it. They sit down. They go through the instructional time. They pick it back up when they leave. They go to the next classroom. Then there's another one of these hanging. They put it in. That practice has proven to be highly effective at Winston Churchill High School. It certainly has been, there opportunities to have to work with students around the consistency of that. And I think the one thing we also just need to acknowledge is the opportunities and challenges around this. So we all know this. Our kids and us as adults, as professionals, are very connected to our cell phones. It's a means to communicate. It's a means to be connected to your peers. It's become a form of communication that, unfortunately, in many situations, has been a more desired form of communication than face-to-face communication is actually to text my friend as opposed to call or talk with my friend. To go back to the example around the paper pencil writing versus using a device to do that, I think what we've seen is that students' ability to engage in dialogue and discussions in a classroom has decreased over the past 4 or 5 maybe more years. What we've seen in the schools that during the pilot is a higher level of engagement within classrooms. Students have made comments of, what I would have texted a friend or had a question about, I actually just asked the question. Some students shared that they actually would text about the lesson that was taking place, which I think sometimes we don't give our students as much credit as they really deserve. We think they're on their phone doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or talk. Some of them reported that they were actually talking about and exchanging information about, not during a test, but actually what was happening during instruction. Well, now their phone's away. They actually now are starting to have discussions, share their thoughts, as opposed to texting them to a friend. One of our middle school principals, during an instructional walkthrough, his math achievement data at the middle school level went up substantially. He was one of the pilot schools. Asked what it was was there some specific strategy that was utilized in math instruction that led to this? He said, I really believe it was all about the away all day. So we believe that through the pilot, right? And I think at first I will say, when you look at a pilot, you sometimes think you kind of know the outcome and question, do we really need to go through a pilot to actually implement a policy or regulation? In this particular situation, I think it was highly beneficial to see what schools were doing, to study what schools were doing, to engage in conversations with staff, to engage in conversations with students. Where we have landed, and if we could go to the next slide, where we have landed is that a lot of people want a standardized solution to a problem, and this is the feedback that we got during the pilot, right? So there are schools that utilize cell phone pouches, which we are prepared to utilize funding to provide to schools as an option. Cell phone pouches, the way that they work is you come into a classroom, you put your cell phone into a pouch, it actually locks, and it remains locked, but you remain with your cell phone, and then it can be unlocked as you leave the classroom. There are other places where, and we've looked at other school systems where they actually do that as they enter the building. It goes into a pouch, it remains locked, and then when they leave the building, there's a magnetic way, it's the only way to get it out, and they open it that way. There are other schools, as we went through the pilot, that weren't using pouches, but simply just had a box where students put it into a box. At the end, the teacher distributed them back out to students. So I think the one thing is we don't want to create problems where there aren't problems, and that's been the feedback from principals. Some principals have said, my students, understand what the the expectations are. I've had incidents where I've had to engage with parents around it and had a progressive discipline process for that, which we'll have outlined it actually in our new code of conduct. I think that you'll see, so at the elementary, and we can go to the next slide because I think a lot of this will be more worthwhile through some discussion as well. These are the expectations that are in the new regulation. So at the elementary and middle school, it's bell to bell, no cell, right? So we have landed on you're not to be having access or utilizing a cell phone. You can have one in your backpack with you. We understand that students have to make phone calls to parents after school, that they're coordinating things. Certainly don't want to take away what also our parents have clearly given us feedback that there is a sense of safety knowing I have that connection with my child. And to say you can't bring a cell phone into school at all is not really an option that we can't put that type of an expectation because it's not a realistic one either. Like they're going to be bringing cell phones to schools. Out of the pilot schools at the middle school level that did bell to bell, no cell, they did not find that there was very little disruption, very little problems. Students respected it. They did not use cell phone pouches for that. They just set those expectations, communicated them well to the parents, and then had a progressive discipline component around. If a teacher tells you to put a cell phone away, you don't put it away the first time. You get to the second time, really need to put your cell phone away, and trying to go through it being teacher managed before it gets to a referral to the office, right? And a lot of this is also just about relationships with students, partnerships with families, and getting a community commitment around this. At the high school level, where we landed on with the regulation is that phones will stay off and away during class, but can be utilized during lunch and also transitions. We put in there that unless the principal decides otherwise, and that would be done in collaboration with the with student leadership and instructional leadership and community around the main concern became around hallway time. And that is actually linked also to our code of conduct, where we have increased consequences for students that film inappropriate behavior in a school and then disseminate it using social media. Because what we've seen in those instances is that an isolated incident or disruption or conflict between two students that is actually remediated and restored is then it is caused further where they then engage again because of what's disseminated on social media and people kind of fanning the flames of something that we've actually been able to restore sometimes without severe consequences, and then something elevated has happened. We in terms of the progressive discipline, we really looked closely at I got to say the high schools. There are the multiple high schools that outside of the pilot that are doing this that we studied. Rockville High School is one. Rashonda Piles and her team did an exceptional job. Richard Montgomery is another one that we looked at. Benjamin Banneker Middle School is another one that we looked at. And again, having progressive discipline laid out, that is also, teachers tell students to put things away all the time, right? It's not just a cell phone. It could be close your computer. It could be like, it's not time to read that book. Can you please put it away? That's for a different class. It could be you're doing homework for another class during, that class. So kind of going through just the first offense being a warning, the second offense being at this particular school, the cell phone placed in a locked pouch for the rest of the day. The third offense being automatically placed in a locked pouch when they come into the building. The fourth being the parent teacher or parent administrative conference around it face to face in order for the student to have the phone returned to them. And then fifth, just moving towards that student automatically locks their cell phone in a pouch every time they come into the building because they just haven't been able to handle it. In talking with principals, very seldomly did they get to that fourth and fifth level. It was almost like students had to I'm trying to think of the right word, go through the process of living without their cell phone and becoming conditioned to feeling okay with it being away. And I think we can all, in a lot of ways, understand when you don't have your cell phone, the feelings of, and some people call it an addiction to your device, which I don't think is a stretch. And so having to condition students through this process is what some of the principals unpacked. At first, it was difficult. And then as we went through, it got less and less difficult, and the students became, comfortable without having access to it, whether it was during a class period or during a whole day. I think another good thing that was shared by middle school principals is that if you implemented it in middle school, then you have freshmen, ninth graders coming in who have not been using their cell phone in school for 3 years. And it's a natural progression. Unfortunately, we're kind of setting a standard now when we've had a lot of variance in terms of what principals and schools and communities were deciding around cell phones, based off of their location. Now going to a standardized middle school, no cell from bell to bell. I think that's I believe that's our last slide. It is. So.
Yeah, let's go back to the last one just to keep that one up. So since that's what it is, thank you. Yeah, this is really helpful. And just to be clear, this policy will be in place in 1 month and 1 day. August 26th is the first day of school this year. Where no elementary and middle school, there will be no cell phone usage at all during the day. It can be with them on their person for an emergency, and obviously there's 504 accommodation.
That's another thing.
IEP accommodation, correct. Right?
Yeah.
So, and not used during class transitions. Just saying that because I have a middle schooler starting another one starting in 6th grade. I want to make sure she hears that. And then in high school, off during class, a variety of strategies used to do that, whether it be pouches or keep them on their person, just not in their bag. Or some classes might use some schools might find they want to use the image that you had, the little caddy.
Yeah.
That's going to be up to the principal in the individual school. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we're going to give you them kind of and Kim and I were even talking about this early this morning about there's always this interest in giving people like a standard way to do things. Right. But I mean, when you have 26 high schools, 25, almost soon to be more. The idea of that we're going to use pouches at every school, and they're going to be like, principals have said to us, I don't need that, and you're actually probably creating a larger problem for me by that. Right. Churchill's example of just putting them in these kind of like locations that are not locked up. I mean, they got to the point where that was just became a habit. Students came in, boop, dropped it in. And then even if teacher needed a reminder, hey, Kim, you're number 11, it's empty, what's up? And Kim would get up, go drop her phone. And so, yes, pouches for where schools select that they want to use that. Rockville's using pouches. That has worked out really well for them. Churchill, with the pilot, did not use that. So giving them a menu of choices and then communicating to most importantly, their community around how they're going to manage this. Yep. And also, so that we know and we can support and provide the resources necessary, whether it's technology or, pouches or whatever it might be, to support what they're doing at their respective school.
Yeah, and I think, so makes sense to not, you have a policy that's applicable to everybody, how you do it, you provide flexibility, that makes a ton of sense. The one area where I think there could be some subjectivity and where you're going to need to communicate well with students and parents and educators is unless the principal decides otherwise, right? In the high school context, the general policy is that you can use it in transitions and in lunch, right? And I think, and you brought up a very important example around if there's a conflict or a fight or something being recorded, that would be a reason maybe in some instances where there might be some students or some decision made to not allow that. I just think it needs to be really clearly communicated so it's not done in a disparate way, because everyone's different.
Yep.
About how they approach it. So you may have the same activity, you will have the same activity at two different schools, and the decision will be made to do something different. Mm-hmm. And not saying that's right or wrong, it just needs to be communicated to the school community. It needs to be some sort of, so I want to know what's the kind of oversight. Is it just totally the principal decides, or what's the review of that? Because, last thing you want is like students at one school under some regime that, other students aren't.
Yeah. So it would be reported to us about specifically what the decision is around that. Surprisingly, not surprisingly, I shouldn't say. Most of the principals want their students to have access during the hallway and at lunch because they felt like,
First pressure valve release.
It's a pressure valve, and that was the exact quote from one principal. Yeah. It's a pressure valve release, and it's also as they are getting older. I mean, there's not these types of policies as you transition to college career, and so giving them more responsibility to be able to access it. Their main thing is around the instructional time. They don't want to see it during the instructional time, and they want to put their energy and focus into that. So I don't think we'll see really a decision outside of that.
Got it.
I think it needs to be, yes, communicated at the school, but also we need to partner with them around the why they feel the need to do something differently at their particular school. And like you said, is it because there's a significant amount of incidents that have resulting from disruption from students using their cell phone to, I mean, majority of our kids are, all of our kids are great kids, but every once in a while there are times where they make a poor decision around, electing to use it in a disruptive way. Most of them aren't using it in a disruptive way. Most of them are connecting with, friends in other classes, family, checking the score of a game, whatever it is.
Right. And I'm assuming none of this sporting activities, all that's you're able to.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll ask for now is just how you're going to communicate. Oh, and then you can use it on buses.
Yes.
Okay, as you say here. How in the progressive discipline approach, or progressive sounds good. I think that makes sense. What's the rollout communication plan around this as we head into the school year?
So it's multiple tiers, and we've really thought very carefully around this. So there is the pre-service training that is a standardized training that all principals and staff will engage in. There is a first week, again, structured. We have videos built into it so that we know that students are all receiving the same thing, of our principals and administrators having town halls to not only talk through the code of conduct, emergency preparedness, but what is the cell phone policy? What does it look like at our school? How are we implementing it? What does progressive discipline look like? And then there's community messaging that includes those same videos so that parents are accessing what we are actually also showing their kids. So principals then sending out, this is what we covered today and during town halls, but there's also the district-wide messaging that will come out in addition to that will have updates on social media platforms, on the MCPS West website, a district-wide FAQ and regulation summary that is translated into multiple language that's accessible for our families. And then also we've made it a standing discussion item for our back-to-school nights to ensure that it's covered at schools. You sometimes get your largest audience at a school event for that, and making sure that that's also interpreted in the respective languages in our school communities.
I think this one is one that lends itself to, a social media, like a graphic of some sort that can, in multiple languages, that can be, really shared out and make its way around the universe of WhatsApp. And
we got all kinds of,
there you go.
all kinds of things that we're working on. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll turn to colleagues. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you. This makes a lot of sense. It's just common sense, and based on lessons learned and feedback you all have received from parents, faculty, staff, and kids themselves. So I think it's great. And I shared this last year when you all were considering this or trying to think through what the policy would look like. Silver Creek was one of the schools that was one of the pilot schools. And as I shared during the back to school night last year, parents practically gave a standing ovation when the announcement was made, the bell to bell, policy requirement. And anecdotally last year, what I heard from both my son and also other parents and faculty and staff was that the socialization that happened during lunchtime, things just opened up significantly in ways that were unanticipated. And I think as we track this social and emotional learning, all of it, behavioral issues, I think it's all going to improve. So I think it's very, very wise. Just one point. So, one of the points of resistance to families, and you shared that earlier, was if there is an incident or an emergency, parents want to be able to allow their students to be able to access them, because sometimes things happen in real time, lockdowns, et cetera. But on a parallel track, you all have significantly enhanced your communication policies when there are emergencies in schools. If I could give you a moment to talk about that, because it's connected to all of this. If we do a better job communicating to parents through text messages during the day, it minimizes the need for students to then have to, provide information to their parents regarding some macro level issue that's happening at the school.
So I think, and I'd go back to the importance of actually studying what specific schools we're doing. We have schools where parents are extremely complimentary of the communication that the school or the principal or the system sends out during an emergency procedure, and a culture has been created where they don't feel the need to text their children because they know that communication is coming. We have places where that culture has not been established. There's not the same level of trust, and parents have expressed very clearly that they want to be able to communicate with their child during a lockdown. And if something occurs, they actually have already kind of communicated a plan that their child will reach out and share information with them. So I think there's multiple things here. I think the first is ensuring that we are establishing cultures where people are putting out information in a quick, accurate manner, providing follow-up quickly from the system and the school, working collaboratively. Dual communication sometimes it comes directly from the system to parents. I do think the other part, though, and I think about this as a parent, is that there are situations that where and not an exception to the policy, but that where students still have that access, right? And so I think what a follow-up for us after this is having a conversation with schools, principals, security teams, working with Chief Jones about what are our specific guidelines around cell phone usage during an emergency procedure. I can tell you there are times where the information that has been shared has actually elevated when the information is moved outside of the school. It's actually elevated the emergency situation because the information that was shared was not accurate. Right. And we've tried to say, and some communities have been very responsive to this request about not, communicating during an emergency procedure, because if we're actually in a lockdown also too, you have the sounds of the phones going off. So it's not a true, lockdown. So I think it's something that we need to work on, because that's been the main source of feedback around the cell phone policy at the both the middle and high school level is, I want to still have access to my child should an emergency occur. And it's how can you say to a parent you can't? So I think we just need to put some guidelines in place, some best practices, and continue to work on that.
That makes sense. And then this is common sense also, but just want to confirm. So if a parent does need to reach their child because a ride fell through or somebody, something happened during the day, so they're not going to be able to text them at the middle school level, but they can still obviously call the central office, and the central office will then, just as when we were in school, will relay information to kids in real time.
And interesting, yes, but I also just want to share, I was talking with an administrative team at an ILT meeting recently, and they were saying that part of part of those touch points with parents are relationship building opportunities.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I don't ever get the opportunity to, everybody, forgets something, or, whatever it is, those are all relationship building opportunities that we have taken out of our schools as a result of this, texting or calling and everything. So yes, they can contact their school. We'll get the information to their child, immediately. Sometimes it might even be quicker than utilizing a cell phone. So yes, kind of back to the days of using the school as a means of communication to get information to your child.
Thank you. And then final question is, obviously there's technology that exists that can deaden Wi-Fi access to phones within buildings. Not saying that's a one-size-fits-all or that we want to go down that road, because that could create more problems than you're trying to solve. But have we looked at that type of technology as well, where there are ongoing issues that we just seem to not be able to resolve with the policies that we're putting in place?
And I don't know if Ms. Fields wants to follow up on this a little bit, but so we have put in, where we've had like dead spots, we've actually put in boosters in place to actually, so there is more accessibility. Principals have asked in certain areas if there could not be accessibility. So we haven't put any technology really in place to limit access. We've tried to put technology into place to increase access.
Okay.
But I don't know if there's anything that. Okay.
Got it. All right. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Mink.
Thanks. Not a lot to add. I'm excited about this. I have kids, obviously young kids going through MCPS, and I don't want them on. I don't want them on cell phones. They're in elementary school now, but I'm really grateful for that they're going to have the opportunity to move into, when it's time to move into middle school and high school, in spaces where we are coaching them to not be on their phones all the time and to be engaged. There's just so much value in that. So I'm happy for our kids. I'm happy for my kids, and I appreciate the work, because I know that this transition time is harder in a lot of ways than both what came before and what came after. This is going to be the trickiest moment, and I'm sure that's why it hasn't happened till now. So I appreciate you all taking this on, and I'm hearing from a lot of parents who are appreciative as well. As you're working on all the different comms, possibilities here, our students might be a great resource for that as well. And so thinking about, can they put together some cool social media videos? Are they, they would probably have some fun ideas that could actually be marketed, obviously, toward the student body, and would have the, students actually listen to them a lot better than they would listen to any of us, I'm sure. And so there might be, teachers who might want to do that within their classes. I'm sure that there are various ways that could be come up with, but just putting that idea out there, that could be a useful tool. And then also, if you're pulling together, hopefully if we pull together a group, as Chair Jawando noted, of students who can be providing like iterative feedback on the AI and tech policy, that could also potentially be a way that you could find a venue for letting students lead some of the student-to-student comms on phones away.
Thank you, Councilmember Mink.
Agreed. I did have just one more question, and if you all have anything else to add, I think, the NEA poll that 90% of educators were in favor of this, and probably 100% of parents, with the limited exceptions of needing to have access for emergencies. And this is, so I think we're going to learn a lot of things. There was some note in the pilot language around, quote, students were clever in bypassing restrictions. Could you elaborate on what that is, and if there's anything you learned about how to bypass the bypass, or like what was happening?
So I think a part of that is students not checking in their phones in those specific
Not
classes,
hanging it on the
and then
caddy.
you know that using them. And then I think the other piece was at the was around was actually around bathrooms. Students utilizing their phones at the middle school level in bathrooms. So, as we've talked about before around safety and security, a lot of things happen in bathrooms, and that seems to be a place where we're going to need to continue to focus on.
Yes. So you opened up a Pandora's box here. So this is the technology discussion, but like, where are we on the bathroom? That has been something that has been disparate depending on which building you're in, and we've heard issues around like my kid can't use the bathroom. There's not enough bathrooms there's too much. There's negative things going on in the bathroom. We put some. There's been part of the plan was to put some sensors. There's been some sensors in bathrooms related to vaping. Is there a consistent bathroom policy right now?
So, our student member of the board pushed hard on this one throughout the course of the year, and would collect data for us and share, certain things about, specific school practices versus other schools' practices. I think it's kind of the theme of this conversation is not necessarily bad. Well, habits being created as a result of coming out of a time period where people were looking to find any solution to maintain student engagement, and so one of the main things after the pandemic was this gathering place of the bathroom. So what practice principals started to put in place were twofold. Either they took the doors off to some bathrooms, right, so that you had kind of it line of sight for students to how many students are in there, or you have the locking of bathrooms and closing down bathrooms in certain locations in the school. The message that sends to our students and our community is essentially that the school is not safe. You don't really trust your students. It's not the answer to the problem. It's also like really in a lot of ways, and I've shared this with some specific principals, it's also a health code violation for a student not to be able to find or access a bathroom. All of our bathrooms, the expectation is all of our bathrooms are open this school year. That does lead to, having to be very strategic around the use of your, security team, your staff, in terms of like monitoring their placement. I do think the sensors will help because they're also connected to drawing attention from our security staff or administrative staff when there's a loud noise in addition to just vaping. So, and also our security staff having access to iPads where they're constantly on the move and can move to certain places to,
based on what's going on.
Correct behavior or proactively intervene as opposed to reactively intervene.
I appreciate that, and I agree with that. The bathrooms should be in use, and we heard that a lot from parents and students. Like, worst thing we all know as human beings, worst thing you can happen is if you got to use the bathroom and you can't get in. It's like, it's not fun. But appreciate that. Colleagues don't have any other questions. I think, if you don't have anything else to add.
Question.
Yes, Councilmember Make.
Yeah, just going to add, and I really appreciate the bathroom conversation, but really quick about the video messaging and the comms, the importance of wherever possible being able to do those video messages like in the home language as opposed to in English with translations. That there's great value there. And leveraging our students could be a great way to produce a lot of those as well. So just wanted to note that.
That's a great point. And it also will keep Dr. Taylor from recording another corny video.
I don't know if it would do that.
No, it probably won't, but I wanted to take that shot anyway. Hopefully it'll encourage him to do another one. Really, really appreciate the work that you all are doing. And this will be, like I said, this will be our last session until the school starts, and I wish everyone a great rest of the summer. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.